Welcome to the Livin'Sky podcast, a show about raising connected, resilient kids in a world that often forgets what they need most. I'm Lena Livinsky, a pediatric speech-language pathologist, holistic feeding specialist, and a mom, here to help you understand your child's body, behavior, and biology in a whole new way. Each episode brings you simple, practical tools to support healthy eating, development, and family connection without the overwhelm. Thanks for listening. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Livin'Sky podcast, your go-to source for healthy living and valuable insights into child development and family health. I'm your host, Lena Livinsky, or Lena for short. As an SLP specializing in feeding, and most importantly, a mom, my work in holistic health reflects both my professional experience and personal journey. For over a decade, I've passionately studied and researched this field. Now I work with parents of children with chronic disorders, helping them heal and thrive. Join me for a mix of solo and guest episodes featuring experts in the health and wellness space. I can't wait to dive in, and also, I have a toddler, so I gotta get going. Let's get the show on the road. Welcome to the Livin'Sky podcast. Today, I'm joined by someone whose work has truly changed the way so many families think about their children's health. Jess Sherman is an award-winning nutritionist, an international speaker, an author, and the creator of the Roadmap to Resilient Kids. She's helped parents and professionals in over 40 countries bring simplicity and confidence to the way they support kids with anxiety, ADHD, learning differences, and mood challenges. Jess brings such a unique perspective as both an educator and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and her understanding of how deep nutrition and attachment shape our kids from the inside out is something I've admired for a very long time. Jess, welcome to the Livin'Sky podcast. I'm so grateful you're here to share your wisdom with all the moms listening, and because I know they're going to walk away with feeling both empowered and less alone. So welcome.
Thank you. I hope so. That's a great goal.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure of it. Let's start with your story. You were a high school teacher before becoming a holistic health practitioner. What did you notice in your students that led you to make such a powerful shift into holistic health?
Well, I noticed that they were struggling despite our best efforts. And, it's so interesting when I look back, like this is just the nature of life, right? It's like I have a very circuitous path to what I do now, but it really is all connected because what was going on was that I was in a very particular type of teaching. My training was in experiential education and outdoor education. I landed in a school that was very, I don't want to say hard knocks, but like the kids that we worked with needed something different. And so it was very unique. We had leadership in our school that was like, listen, throw out the curriculum, connect with your kids, get them outside. So we had an amazing staff and we had an amazing opportunity, and we really did help a lot of kids. But then there was this subset of kids who were like, what is going on with them? Like something else is happening. And I got really curious about the biology underneath behavior. Like what prompts kids to act the way they act and behave the way they do and have the challenges that they do. And it's curious to me now that I look back that I didn't want more educational tools. I didn't want more special ed tools or more educational tactics. Like I felt like we had that nailed. What I wanted was to understand the underneath. And I had always been interested in food and nutrition and holistic health and that sort of thing. So I decided to take a sabbatical. I was also really burnt out because they were really high needs kids. Mm-hmm. And I decided to take a sabbatical and study nutrition a little bit. And then I just my mind, that's where I was like, oh my gosh, something is going on. There's a biology to this that we're not taught and we're not talking about. I learned about the microbiome. I learned about genetics. I learned about nutrients and how nutrients affect the brain and learning and focus. And that made all the difference. So I decided my sabbatical turned into a career shift.
Well, that's often how it goes, right? You just have this awakening period where all of a sudden wait, what is missing? And then hopefully you're led in the right direction to kind of put the pieces together. So that's great.
Well, I couldn't unlearn what I learned. And around the same time, I had my first baby. And so I became a mom. And I realized, okay, teachers don't understand this. Parents are never taught this. I think there's a role for me to play here to sort of bridge the gap between all of the people who are working with kids and trying to help kids, the teachers, the doctors, the parents, and adding this piece in to understand that the resilience inside a body affects the resilience of the mind and how kids function and how they feel and how they move through life.
Absolutely. And I feel like there's been such a disconnect in the medical model for so long that we just focus on behavior by itself, right? So we're going to use ABA just to kind of help the kids behave better or learn through this model. And then maybe we're going to medicate them or help them from the medical perspective to help them deal whatever imbalances they have. And we don't often look at this connectedness of a person and how that will affect their mind, their brain, their spirit, everything else. So I couldn't agree with you more that, that connection is so important for us to understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So for children with learning disabilities, ADHD, anxiety, mood disorders, many of whom are prescribed medication, how can those medications impact their ability to learn, to focus, to process kind of the world around them?
Gosh, I'm not anti-medication at all. Sometimes medication's just the thing. The thing is that kids have, the way I describe it to my clients is that there's three really interconnected aspects to a child's ability to learn and how they function, how they behave. One is skills, right? Do they have the skills? Do they have the tactics? Parenting strategies and therapeutic strategies, they often focus there, even educational strategies, right? It's like if they have the skills, kids, the Dr. Green thing of like kids do well when they can. Do they have the skills? What are they lacking? That's one aspect. Another aspect is learned behavior, right? They fall into patterns. And they self-identify as like, I like this, I don't like this, I can do this, I can't do that, just based on their experience. And then there's the biology of like the internal resources. Do they have the right nutrients? Do they have the right neurochemistries? Yeast happening in their body that's interfering with them, right? So there's these three interconnected pieces, and where nutrients and medication, they fall in that category of the biology piece, right? It's just that one's a more natural approach than the other. So in my opinion, it's like, well, if kids don't have the right nutritional building blocks and resources, if they don't have a healthy gut, if we're not feeding them to their genetics and that sort of thing, then they're not going to have the biology in place to have a positive lived experience and be able to use the skills and the tools and the tactics that they're being taught. Right. But a lot of medical doctors, that their toolbox is medication, right? They put a kid on an SSRI, and then that kid can have a better learned experience, can access those tools and those behavior, those tactics, right? It's like a pressure valve. It's just, I think it should be considered a pressure valve. It's like more often than not, parents will go to their doctor for some kind of a medication, and it's sort of considered, well, your child just needs this medication, like it's going to be a forever thing. And I always suggest to parents, like, okay, the first conversation you want to have with your prescribing doctor, if you choose to go the medication route, is what's our exit strategy? Like, how are we using this as a pressure valve so that my kid can access a positive experience, so that my kid can learn more skills and tools? But what's our timeline in terms of like weaning them off of it? It's not the end answer. It's only one of the three prongs, right? And in a similar way, this is a very long answer to your short question.
No, I love it.
In a similar way, that's how I consider nutritional supplements and foods and special diets and things like that. It's like it's scaffolding. I think of it as scaffolding to help a kid have a more positive experience and be able to access the tools and the tactics that they need to live a healthy life. And then we want to slowly try to peel away the scaffolding and see if their body is well resourced enough to be able to do these things without the crutches. Right. So I'm not anti-medication. I think they're overprescribed. I think we jump to them as the only option. I mean, that's why I got into this as a teacher. It's like, okay, well, we're going to send you off for educational, therapy or for your psychiatrist or whatever, come back when you're teachable. And that didn't sit right with me. So I think there's this extra step of like, well, let's see what's going on in your body and let's make sure that the medication is actually what you need. Maybe we can get away with some amino acids, or we can, get where we want to get with changing your diet, because that's just less intrusive than a medication in my opinion. It's a lot we don't know about these meds and how they affect kids long term. So that's why I worry about them.
Absolutely. I do too. But I agree with you. I think there's a time and place for it. But if a parent is being pushed to try medication and perhaps they're starting to wonder, like, where is this the best choice? Is this really the only option for my child? What will be a first step for them to explore, to kind of see if they could adjust their nutrition, to maybe they can adjust something at home, maybe their environment, what is the first step you would recommend for them?
Come talk to me.
Yes.
It's a little bit tricky. I mean, there's a trifecta of things that I think kids always need to be doing in order to be healthy. And they're eating, sleeping, and pooping. So if your child is struggling with their behavior or their mood, or that you're starting to worry about them, first of all, pay attention to your worry, right? Because we're all often like, oh, it's just a phase, it's just normal. Like, you get to decide what is normal. You get to decide what is the health and what you want for your kids. If you're worried about it, then the thing to ask is, are they eating, sleeping, and pooping?
Right.
Okay. So if there's something going on in one of those three things, then you have a leverage point. You have something to explore, right? Because they're really at the headwaters of so much. So that brings up, do you have a really picky eater? Maybe it's time to work on that. Do you have chronic constipation, reliance on laxatives? And do you have sleep problems? Kids who are having, night waking, can't get to sleep, nightmares, things like that.
Absolutely.
So those are the things to ask yourself, and those are the things to get some support with first. And then, I mean, it brings up a whole can of worms of the conversation of what to talk about with those three things. But yeah, that's where I think to start is asking those questions.
Definitely. And have you seen quick shifts in children? Like, what have you seen with the clients you have worked with where you have kind of addressed these issues besides medication, when you work on their sleep, when you work on their health, when you work on their eating? What have you seen?
Yeah, I see huge shifts. I see huge shifts. I had one 12-year-old who hadn't slept a night in their life and hugely anxious. And so we decided in my initial consultation with them, I'm like, okay, where are we going to start? Sleeping seemed to be the lowest hanging fruit for them. We got him sleeping with some amino acids and some changes in diet and things like that. And he slept through the night. And then the trickle-down effect was, okay, now the whole family can sleep because nobody was sleeping.
Boy.
And then, the anxiety piece started to pull back. And I'm like, okay, now we can actually talk to the kid about their anxiety, and we can get them on board. We can start to talk about their fear around food. This kid had a lot of fear around food as well. So we can start to talk to them about that. We did a stool test. So, little baby steps, but I see massive changes in kids who have, a lot of raging candida or clostridia in their gut, and it's creating pooping problems, and they don't feel well in their tummy, and we can get them cleaned out and we can get them pooping, and they just feel better.
Yes. And I feel like when you do address these root causes of discomfort or disease, then oftentimes everything else kind of starts to slowly fall into place, kind of like with picky eating. Right? When kids are very picky, perhaps it is the constipation, perhaps it is them not feeling very well when they're eating and they're not digesting things correctly that is causing the picky eating. So it's just always a trickle-down effect of everything.
It is. I always giggle a little bit about the word root cause because it gets thrown around so much, right? And I think it actually drives parents a little bit batty, right? It's like, what's the root cause? What's the root cause? There is not a root cause. This is one of the things I want people to understand. There is no root cause. There is a cyclone of stress that is causing more stress, that is causing more stress, that is causing more stress, that is causing more stress. And so it's not the poo, it's not the sleep, it's not the food, it's all of it together, and it's how it interconnects. And so the beauty of thinking about it that way is that means there are multiple inroads. There are multiple places to start. It doesn't matter where you start. You start with what is most easy for you to wrap your head around and create a strategy for. And it's going to affect all the other things, like the sleep example. Right?
Exactly. And I love the way you presented that because it does get thrown around a lot, that term. And I think it can be confusing, especially to parents, and it can be intimidating because it's like, well, what if I don't get to that one root cause that's causing this and then nothing's going to get better? It's never about that. It's just, I think, looking at the child holistically and addressing just kind of these main components and areas that can make such a big shift.
Yeah. Yeah. And the same thing happens when parents are looking for supplementation. Like, what's the thing I can give my kid to change this? And it's like, well, we're going to see an effect with a culmination of a few different strategies. Sometimes there's a needle mover, right? We take out gluten and, oh my gosh, look, we're no longer having tantrums. Like I do see that sometimes. Or we give an amino acid and all of a sudden we have more calm and stability and a kid is saying yes to things that they used to say no to because they're so anxious, right? So yes, sometimes there are massive needle movers, but that doesn't mean you've found the root cause. It means you've found a really important contributor.
Absolutely. So when you work with clients and you're trying to kind of like figure out, is it the amino acids? What is off? Like what kind of testing do you use? Do you think we need testing? Can we kind of like figure this out without having an objective measure?
I mean, listen, like tests are expensive. They're not accessible to everybody. We've got to get samples from our kids. It can be tricky. I find as a parent and having worked with a ton of parents, having a set of data is really helpful. It's helpful to guide your decision making because you've got a million things to do in a day. And so it's very helpful to have a set of data. It's also helpful if you have a kid who's interested. And I don't know if you see this, but sometimes like kids are fascinated when you start to show them on paper what's going on in their body. I had a kid, actually a teenager once, who like he decided he wanted to go into farming, like biodynamic farming, because like he wanted to study that. He went to some like agricultural college because he got so interested in the microbiome and what was going on in his tummy. And he was older. He was an older kid, but like he was fascinated. So anyway, you'd be surprised. So having objective data can be really helpful talking point for your kids. It can be helpful to guide you. Is it essential? I don't think it's essential because, you know, quite honestly, I see very similar patterns in the kids that I work with, right? When I start running functional tests. So it's always my preference. It speeds things up for sure. But there are a lot of things we know kids need regardless of what any test says. There's 5 of them, actually. That's part of my framework. There's 5 things that kids need regardless of what any test says. Do you want to know what they are?
Yeah, I would love to. Please tell us.
They're real whole food, sufficient hydration, restorative sleep, movement and play and laughter, and connection and a sense of purpose.
Yes. And why do you think these components are so important?
Because that's what our biology demands. As human beings, that's what we require. You know, this is taking everything that I've learned from functional nutrition, from functional medicine, with everything that I've learned from child psychology, with everything that I learned from teaching, everything that I've witnessed as a parent, everything that I've seen with my clients. It's like these are non-negotiables. This is what the body expects, what the body wants, what the body has evolved to require. We got to teach our kids how to get these things met.
Definitely. And sometimes it's such an easy shift, right?
One of the things I suggest sometimes people can do is just make a chart. Just chart out those 5 things. And either you can, I mean, there's lots of different ways you can use this as a tool to help your kids. I've had some parents who are homeschooling like create a whole unit.
Oh, great.
At home on these things. Like, here's our health unit. We're just going to get these things dialed. But if you don't have that, then you can say to your kids, okay, here are 5 things. Which one do you want to work on? Or you could give yourself a challenge to be like, hey guys, this week we're all going to focus on our sleep and do it as a family. It really doesn't matter where you start, but these are sort of 5 things you can talk about with your kids, and you can be fun with it, be flexible with it.
Yeah. And I think it could be done at any age too, right? Because you can always bring play into it. You can always make it fun. A kind of like a reward thing as well, and just like a family gathering and activities. So it could be very fun even for the younger kids.
Yeah. And it's really fun when your kids start to call you out on stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is like pretty early on, right?
More water today?
How much do I know?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. The kids are so brilliant and so early on. It blows my mind because I have a 3.5-year-old, and some things that I assumed would come in later come in so early, and he notices things, and I'm just like, oh my God, how old are you? Like, how are you processing this information? It's mind blowing to me.
Yeah, it's never too early. It's never too late. You know,
yes,
that's the beauty of it.
Exactly. And I love that because I think sometimes we focus so much on milestones and what my child should be doing at this exact moment in these 2 months of development. And every child is so different that I no longer use that as a guide very much, because so many kids just come in to learn these skills later on or early. And I think that can be kind of like troubling to some parents to just kind of like really focus on it and worry if your child is not there. But children are so resilient and so brilliant that oftentimes they'll come in when they're ready.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. You talk about attachment and helping children with their emotional development and future relationships. I just wanted to talk to you about that a little bit. What do you mean by attachment? Why is it so important?
Well, attachment, I mean, this comes from, attachment theory and
Hmm.
John Bowlby and, all the various people who have added. Dr. Gordon Neufeld is a great resource for attachment. It's really the parenting approach that really speaks to me. And so I've kind of rooted everything in that approach. And it requires that we watch our kids. It's the basis for how they relate to people, whether they have a secure attachment, whether they have an anxious attachment, whether they have disorganized attachment. It really forms the foundation for their relationships, how they relate. And it comes from their relationship with their parents, mostly their biological mother. And so when you can understand your child's attachment style, you can understand why they react the way they react to certain situations. And
That
what we're working towards, what we want, is a secure attachment where they feel like you are their solid base. Even if you're not present, they can always come back to you if they make a mistake. You are their home base. That's what we're wanting. And that's what we're working
absolutely.
towards, which is really important to consider when you're dealing with food, right? When you're dealing with picky eaters, for example. But I tell my clients, like, we want to flood their bodies with messages of calm and safety. We do that by being their secure home base. We do that with our language. We do that with our presence. We do that with our modeling. But then we also do that with nutrients and food and good gut health and the messages, we can influence the messages that are flowing in their body that way. So attachment
Absolutely.
really speaks to that calm and that safety that kids feel when they're safe.
Yeah. And I think that we talk a lot about attachment as well when we talk about sleep and that early attachment with the baby when they're waking. And then there is a lot of buzz about like the cry it out method versus, using that attachment based theory of being there almost for every waking and reacting to your child's needs. So I think it's a very important thing. And I love how you talked about this in so many different areas of the child's life because it's not only about sleep, it's always about kind of like your overall relationship with your child and how much that is going to impact them, not only when they're sleeping and when they're interacting with you, but throughout their emotional interaction with anybody and their
Yeah.
social interaction in their life and
Yeah, and
everything as well.
that's why I put connection and sense of purpose in as one of my nourishment needs. Like that, their kids' ability to connect is nourishment. How we connect with them is nourishment. So I really like when I talk about those 5 things that kids need, I call them the nourishment needs to help parents understand like nourishment isn't just about the food that they put in their mouth. There's all kinds of different ways we nourish our kids, and that connection piece is one of them. And sometimes that's the place that we start. If we can't get a super picky eater to eat, the kid's not thirsty, the kid's throwing tantrums at night, sleep is a problem, they're not pooping, like all of that other stuff. We're like, okay, that's really complicated. Let's start with the connection piece. How much time are you spending together? Are you spending uninterrupted time together? Are you making eye contact with your kids? Are you laughing with your kids? All of these things help to create a sense of safety as well so that they will listen to you. They'll hear you. They'll accept your guidance.
Yes. I think that that's crucial. And I think we had a rough few years with COVID and a lot of that social component of connectedness was disrupted, right? In our social world. So I think that created so many different issues for children who didn't have the opportunity to attach in a different way and to be around and meet other people and go to the store and go to the playground and do everything else that requires connectedness with others. And there was stress at home because I think all of us were stressed because we didn't really know what was going on. So I think that created a kind of like a trickle down effect of some kids just being delayed and having trouble with that.
I think so. I think, we're only just starting to see the aftermath effects of all of that. And yeah, I'm starting to see some troubling I mean, maybe you probably see it with speech, like when the
Yes.
kids who were really little and there were masks and they couldn't see people's faces. I mean,
Hmm.
part of how we develop attachment as babies is by attuning to our parents' faces, particularly
Yes.
our moms. So that's so important. And, I would imagine we're doing that with strangers as well as babies, right? So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, yeah, well, time will tell,
Yes.
what lasting effects that it had, but I think we're already starting to see that there were some negative outcomes.
I'm a huge believer that light is one of the most powerful medicines for our kids and for us. That's why I love Bon Charge. Their blue light blocking glasses, red light therapy devices, and many other products are designed to support your circadian rhythm and help your family sleep and feel better naturally. In our modern world of screens and artificial light, these small shifts make a big difference. Calmer evenings, deep sleep, better focus, and happier moods. I use Bon Charge products every single day, and even my son has his own pair of blue light blocking glasses for evening story time. You can check out all their products at boncharge.com and use code LENAL to save 15% off your purchase.
Absolutely. But I think parents being aware it's never too late to develop these secure attachments and to kind of redirect that conversation and help your child get through this and maybe make up for some of these lost skills. It's never too late. It doesn't matter what age they start.
Yeah. Yeah. It absolutely. That's so important for people to understand because now we know about neuroplasticity. We know that the nervous system can shift and can change. Although I do think the nervous system is, I think of it like a big barge. Like it doesn't like to change. It takes a lot of energy to shift the trajectory of a nervous system. So when you tap into your child's attachment style, whatever it is now, know that it can shift, but it takes conscious effort. It's not going to happen overnight. It's like changing the direction of a big barge. So it's going to require like an overabundance of love and support and patience and nourishment.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes, honestly, it might take years. It might take months. It might take shorter than that. It depends on your child's needs, but it is doable. And there is a critical period of development for some things, or perhaps if you start very late, maybe your child will need a lot more support and maybe they're not going to be able to fully get to your goal, but you can always make a difference and make things better.
And you can help them. You can also help them understand their tendencies. I think that's important too, to be like, oh, look, there's that pattern again. And
Definitely.
if they can start to recognize it. And maybe when they're 20s or 30s, they decide they want to do some work to, move through it. But as long as they recognize it, I mean, some of the most powerful experiences I've had with kids is, we'll find out. There's one in particular that I remember so clearly is this girl. She was like a preteen. She was 9. And she would have these fits of rage and anger and anxiety mixed all into that. And then she would afterwards feel so remorseful. But there was this darkness over her where she was like, I'm a bad person. And, I'm a terrible person. I hit the wall again. I broke this thing again. She didn't want to behave that way. And for her, how I was saying there's, sometimes a needle mover. For her, there was a massive needle mover. And well, 2 actually. One was sugar and one was gluten. And so we played around with it. We took those things out for a little while. It stopped. And the most amazing piece of it was that it's not that her tantrums disappeared. It's that she knew that if she ate these things, she would feel terrible, right? And then she'd go into her rage and she'd do her things. But in the aftermath, she and her parents could talk about it, be like, let's make a different choice now. Like, I ate the birthday cake because I really wanted the birthday cake. I knew it had gluten in it. I know I react to gluten this way and sugar. This is what happened. It's not because I'm a terrible person. It's not because I am a misfit. It's because I did this thing. I'm not going to do the thing next time. Or maybe I will and I'll have the fit. But at least right? It wasn't her identity. Right. It was super powerful for the family because now the kid started to recognize that she had a little bit of agency over herself. She wasn't a bad person. She just had she had unregulated inflammation, threw her into a rage. It passed. Yeah. She's going to move on,
That is so powerful because I think sometimes for people with chronic illness or picky eaters, we can kind of start to identify with this label. Like, I'm a picky eater, or I've had psoriasis for many years. So I'm like, my psoriasis, right? And you kind of like start to identify with it. And somebody actually pointed it out for me, like, it's not your psoriasis. It's just psoriasis, right? It's there. It's a symptom of something. And I think oftentimes we're kind of like thrown around and labeled as a diagnosis. And, that's not the thing. That's not the thing that defines us at all. So let's talk about picky eaters. You're an FDNP and you're board certified in pediatric holistic nutrition. What has been your experience working with picky eaters? Is it truly possible for kids to become more adventurous eaters and for them to move past that picky eating phase?
It is possible for kids to move past the picky eating phase and become adventurous eaters. I think you'll back me up on that. It is
100%.
possible. But I will say it's painfully slow
Mhm,
and you have to be extraordinarily patient.
mhm.
And you have to work with your kid's nervous system. You know, like I think the whole nervous system angle that it's happened about maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I've been doing this work for over 10 years. And about 5 years ago or so, I shifted my perspective and really started understanding kids through the lens of the nervous system.
Mhm.
And we don't have a choice but to meet our kids where they're at, where their nervous system is at. Remember, like the barge, right? They're going in this direction. We can shift it, we can change it, but it takes conscious effort. It's the same thing with picky eating. You know, they're following in a track, takes a lot of courage and strategy to shift it because I see a lot of anxiety underneath picky eating,
Yes. Yes.
a lot of anxiety and also a lot of trust problems. And I know
Mhm.
this is like a bombshell for parents, but think of it from your child's perspective. Like they have to trust that what you're giving to them is good for them and that it's going to taste okay and that it's going to feel okay in their body. They don't, not consciously, obviously, but there is that element where when they're saying no to something that you're offering them, even though you know this is important for their body and important and nourishing, there is some element, some part of them that is like, I'm not quite trusting that, right?
Oh,
And we have
absolutely.
to ask, like, what's that about? What is
Yeah.
that about, right? So, you know, back to like, do they have the skill? Do they have the biology? Do they have the learned behavior? We can work with all of those things with picky eaters.
Definitely. I think there's so many different things to explore here. And it's not only about the behavior and about them taking bites, it's about this entire picture of your child making sure that the food is not making them sick and it's not making them uncomfortable and they're not pocketing food, just they're not holding food just because they don't feel like taking this bite. Maybe they don't know how to chew it well. There's so many things to look at that we need to consider when it comes to picky eating. Um,
Yeah, and I mean, you consider all of these in your therapy, right? With kids.
yes.
But yeah, there are skills. That's important. Like you just mentioned, like do they know how to chew and swallow, and does that feel okay in their mouth and that aspect? And then there's also that learned behavior, which
Yes.
sadly, I mean, you and I were talking beforehand, like that's where ABA therapy starts and ends. That's where a lot of the feeding therapy starts and ends, which is just they just need to do it again, do it again, do it again. It's a learned behavior. That's a part of it.
Mhm.
They're both parts of it. But what about the biology, which is the piece that
Right.
you and I have been, you know, studying deeply, right? What about the
Mhm.
biology? What if what they're eating is not being digested well and it's sitting in their tummy like a rock and it makes them feel nauseous? What if they have, you know, candida in their gut that is craving, craving, craving sugar, 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 and then you give them something that's not sugar and their body's like, I don't want
Yeah.
it. What if they have low stomach acid and they feel gaggy, they feel nauseous, and so they
Yeah.
don't want to eat it? You know, so there's all of these pieces. What if it actually is that anxiety piece because, you know, they're feeling unsure and unsteady and now you're trying to, you know, give them something and they're just unsure of it and they're just going to like no is a really good default.
Yes.
When you're like
It
unsure
is.
of something, just say no to it, right?
Yes. Of
Yeah. So it's
course.
all those things.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Usually, when you look at the child holistically, there are many reasons why a child has arrived at a certain behavior. It's not because they're trying to be difficult. It's not because perhaps they don't like this particular thing you cook. Perhaps they don't like the flavor of it, but that is usually when the behavior happens once. But if a child repeats a behavior, it's usually because there is a reason behind it.
Yeah.
And maybe it is a learned behavior, but it doesn't. But it started somewhere, right? So it's worth investigating.
Yeah. Yeah. And a learned behavior might just be like, this is what I do when I protect myself, right? This is
Yeah,
where I see a lot of, you know, an anxiety around food pops up, right? It's like, I tried this once. It made me feel nauseous. The
yeah,
safer thing is to not try it again. And actually, while I'm at it, I'm also not going to try that other thing because that doesn't look familiar. I don't know what that is.
yeah.
Right. So that is
Absolutely.
that is learned behavior. And sometimes you have to, you know, get them to touch it to their lips and get them to, you know, just try a little bite just so that they can be like, oh yeah, right, I can do hard things.
Yeah.
But just asking the right questions and getting curious about things, you know, sometimes I'll use the analogy of like a fire of, you know, if there is no ember in the fire, you can blow on it all you want and you're not going to get a flame, right?
Right.
But if there's even the tiniest little ember and you can blow on it very gently, very gently, very gently, and it will grow and it will grow. So that's what we're looking for in our kids. If your kids are super picky eaters, if they show you even the tiniest little interest, to like touch it, cook with it, shop for it with you, or, put it to their lips or anything like that. Just, blowing on it very gently and getting curious about it. How does that feel for you? What does that taste like for you? I'm so proud of you for doing a hard thing. These little pieces can be really helpful.
Oh my gosh, I love that analogy so much. It portrays it beautifully of exactly what it looks like. And sometimes, it might take a very long time to start that fire, but it's just so worth it. It's just so worth it over time because eating, I mean, it's such a social thing. And also it's important for our health. It's important for our life. It's the second most important function of our body. First is breathing, then it's eating. So it is just so worth it to put in the time for your child to be more adventurous with their food. Because picky eating, if it's not addressed, it can kind of go on lifelong. I have some friends who are adults and they're so picky.
These days when your child refuses everything you make and you just want them to have something nourishing, that's when I grab Signals. It's a real food meal replacement shake made with organ meats, minerals, and nutrients that support kids' biology, not just fill them up. It's rich in iron, zinc, and B vitamins, the building blocks for growth, focus, and strong immune systems. And it's great for the gut. And the best part? Nate calls it his ice cream shake. That's how delicious it is. And as a mom, it feels amazing to know he's getting what his body truly needs without the fight. You can learn more at feedyoursignals.com, and don't forget to use Lena10 at checkout for 10% off your purchase.
Yeah. Sometimes they'll say that like food is the longest relationship you're ever going to be
Yes.
in, your relationship with food.
So
So
very good point.
I want to spend some time making sure it's a good one.
Yes. And it's doable, even for the kids who are only eating the beige diet, only the chicken nuggets and the fries and, the toast. You can start to make shifts.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it's worth it.
Yeah, it's so worth it. So worth it. Because then that's going to drive changes in other areas of their life. Because once you take care of kind of picky eating and you look at the microbiome and everything else, it all starts to fall into place.
Yeah. The thing that I think is helpful for parents to understand too about the analogy of the blowing is that when you're blowing on a dead fire, like you're blowing on an ember that is not even there, that's when you risk making a stressful situation into a traumatic situation. Right? Because it's always a question. I work with like anxious kids, right? So how do we push them to do hard things without that becoming, a memory of like, oh my gosh, I remember you made me go to camp and I didn't want to do it. And it was a super traumatic and then it becomes a big thing in their life, right? You've crossed the line. You're like, well, I know it was really stressful and you didn't like it, but I thought you could handle it. That's always a question in people's minds when their kids are struggling with a certain type of behavior. And this is how I think about it. It's like if you're blowing on something, trying to get them to do a hard thing, and there's not even an ember there, that's when you're risking this potentially stressful experience, which could be a growth experience, and it turns into a traumatic negative experience. But if there's a little bit of an ember there and you can blow on it gently, 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 then you're pushing them into a hard experience that becomes a growth opportunity. And there's a big difference.
Huge difference. I think that's a mic drop moment right there. Huge difference. I love it. And if you feel like you've pushed them maybe too quickly before, it's okay to always rebuild that relationship and go back to that attachment and to try again and try at a different angle and go back perhaps to what you talked about, just connecting with them first to build back that connection and start again. Yeah. Don't worry if you feel like you've pushed them before, because there's so much to think about as a parent. When you have a picky eater, there's stress, there's time constraints, I have to cook for them something separate every single night, and this is just so stressful. And I know they're not going to eat it anyway. And then there's guilt. It could get a little bit messy, but just take a deep breath. You're doing great. And just take a step back and see where you can start again.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So for the parents who are in the thick of it, struggling kind of like every single day, like I just mentioned, with their children eating something nourishing, what is a practical tip you can give them to offer encouragement in terms of like what they can do to really take a step back and what they could start with exactly for those people who are kind of like in the thick of it all the time?
Gosh, again, there is nothing that is like, oh, do this simple thing. But here are a couple of things to do when you're feeling like it's, oh my gosh. Thing is, we get busy.
Yes.
And overwhelmed. And there's so many things. And I know, okay, now I have to buy this. And now I have to do that. So here's something that I do. I do a couple of things. When I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, it's just too much, I step back and I'm like, okay, is there a way I can make this simpler? And then the second thing I say is there a way I can make this more fun?
Love that.
And sometimes the answer is no, you just got to grind through it. But more often than not, the answer is yes. Simplify, bring some levity, put some music on, tell some jokes. That usually diffuses most tough moments. The other pearl that I'll give, this has just helped me in my life, is whenever I feel like I want to or need to teach my kids something, or show them something, like a teachable moment, instead of talking to them, I'll ask a question. I try to do this. This doesn't always work, but try it, right? It's like, oh gosh, I've told you 1,000 times to put your shoes over here so we can find them in the morning. Oh, that's a teachable moment of just like, do this better next time. Or I told you this was going to happen. Versus, doesn't it always seem like I'm telling you to put your shoes here? Right? Or
Right.
does it always feel like I'm telling you to do something? Or should we do this a little bit differently next time? Just trying to flip it and ask a question. It completely changes the vibe. It completely changes the tone. And see what your kids say. Your kids' response is going to be interesting, right?
Yes.
Maybe they'll say like, you've never told me that before. Or no, it doesn't. Or gosh, yes, would you please stop it? Right? It starts a conversation. So those are some things. I don't know if that's really what you meant. Like, it's not a particular food you should be giving them or a particular supplement or what have you. But it just in terms of, remember that your family is a community. Your kids are growing in the structure that you're setting for them. And I don't know about you, but like my husband and I never really talked about the culture that we wanted to create in our home. Mm-hmm. It just kind of happens, right?
Yes.
But it's worth a conversation at some point to just say, hey, hun, if you have a parenting partner, can we just talk tonight before bed about how we want things to work in our family? Because I'm feeling like it's a little disjointed. Yeah. And just open up that conversation. Like, what's important to you? What do you really value? What language do you want to use and not use with your kids? What can you let go of? And just make sure you're on the same page. And if you don't have a parenting partner, just do this for yourself. Write it down. Use a journal.
Yeah, it's very true. And I think that advice comes into any relationship you have. It could be in terms of like a relationship with your partner and your parents and everybody else. And just kind of sometimes rewording what you say or changing your expectations of something can make a big shift, make a big difference.
Yeah.
But I love that. I think being on the same page when it comes to parenting is so important. And it's rare for people to have this conversation. Like, what is the culture we want to have in our house? Because emotions happen and things happen. And you go through the postpartum period and then you have the child and, everything just kind of falls into place. But sometimes you can kind of take a look back and take a pause and shift things just by having this conversation. Even if you've had kids for 15 years, you can still have that conversation and make changes.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's important to know what changes, it's not important to know what changes you want to make, because if you knew what they were, you probably would have made them by now. What's important to know is where you want to go. What is it that you want? And from there, you can backtrack and you can ask yourself, do I have the skills? Do I have the information? Do I know how to do that? Yes or no? Sometimes it's an easy yes. We just have to change this one little thing in our family. Sometimes it's actually no, I need to seek some support on that piece because I don't know how to get there. But you do need to articulate what it is that you want so that you know where you're going. And if you don't take the time to do that, you just end up somewhere, right? It's like, then you look back and you're like, wait, how did we get here?
Yeah,
right?
I know. But that's very good advice. Thank you for sharing that. So if you share just one more piece of advice for parents who want to raise healthier and resilient kids in today's world, what would it be?
I mean, there's so many different places to start. I mean, the framework that I use is bring in more nourishment. And then there's all of the stressors that we haven't even talked about, like the 5 things that I talk about. But they can go over to my Instagram and my book and things like that to learn about that. But there are a million different ways you can start. I think probably the best piece of advice that I can give is to listen more, watch your kids more, tune into them more, and extract what you need to do from that. Watch them get really curious, ask questions. How does that feel for you? What does this taste like for you? What's going on for you? and then go from there. I think that goes a long way. But, from what we talked about today, like just thinking about those 5 nourishment needs and understanding that we nourish our kids in so many different ways and they're all really important. We can't do them all every single day, or not perfectly anyway. We can do a little bit here, a little bit there. But if you start to refocus, if you feel like, okay, yes, I'm not where I want to be with my family, something does have to change, then that's a tool that you can use to be like, okay, just pick one of those things and focus on that for a while.
Yeah, I love that. Can you repeat those 5 things for somebody who wanted to remember?
Yeah, they were real whole food, more real than processed, hydration, restorative sleep, movement, laughter, and play. I group all those together, and connection and sense of purpose.
So powerful. Thank you so much, Jess. If somebody wanted to work with you or find out more about you and what you do and find you on social media, where can they find you online?
Online, I'm Jess Sherman with 3 S's. That's my website, jesssherman.com. And then Instagram is Ask Jess Sherman.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Livin'Sky podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in today and being a part of the Livin'Sky community. I hope you learned something new and inspiring that you can apply in your life right away. If you have a minute, please leave us a 5-star review. It really helps us grow and for other parents like you to find us. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you listen to your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Sending you and your family lots of love. I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks so much for listening to the Livin'Sky podcast. If this episode resonated, please leave a quick 5-star review or share it with another parent who'd love it too. It really helps more families find the support that they need. And don't forget to join my newsletter at lenalivinsky.com for more tips and free guides. Sending a little sunshine to your kitchen today. See you next time.